Hi. So I'm doing these videos to share what I'm learning while working with Power BI, specifically DAX. So I'm essentially just doing these to kind of chronicle what I'm learning while using DAX and share these videos. This might be helpful if you're new to Power BI and new to DAX and new to creating measures and all of that stuff. These videos might be helpful. This is just chronicling what I'm learning while using Power BI in the hopes of it being helpful to some beginners with DAX and Power BI. Today, I want to talk about the calculate function in Power BI, essentially give an introduction to what the calculate function is and what it can do in Power BI. So if you're interested in this, then keep on watching. So in Power BI, you can create measures. A measure is like a calculation on top of something. So let's say the total sum of sales or maybe the total sum of transactions or something. So it's like it's a calculation, right? So you can make these measures in Power BI. And measures are evaluated in filter context. So when we say measures are evaluated in filter context, essentially when you create this calculation and you put it in a visual, the outcome or output of the visual, whatever the visual shows, is dependent on the filters that are applied to the visual. So for example, I create a measure or a calculation that sums up my total sales. And then I put it in a table visual that shows all my total sales for the year 2023. What would happen is that the measure that I created, that's the sum of sales, would show the sum of sales value for the year 2023. And to make this a bit clearer, let's go into an example on the Power BI user interface. So we have our data loaded into our Power BI, and we're going to be using our sales by store table. So here we have details on transactions at various stores, essentially. So we have a sales column. So we're going to calculate a total sales measure. So just add it into our measures table, and let's say let's call it total sales. The sum of um, sales by store sales column. So now we can see our measure total sales has been created. Let's pull in a table visual. So adding a table visual. And in the table visual, what we're going to do is we're going to add in our store ID. So we know the stores that we have. And then we're going to add in our product ID. So we know the products that we're selling. And then we're going to add in, we're going to go into the calendar table. And then we're going to add in the year value. So we know like in this year, this products from this store. Okay, amazing. Now we have all these. Let me close these up. Now we're going to introduce in our measure here, which is our total sales. Let me make this a bit larger. So here we see that for store 3 in the year, for store 3, for product ID 1 and store 3 in the year 2017, we sold 2,340 worth. And for in store 3 for product ID 2 in the year 2017, we sold 1,998. Amazing. So now we were saying earlier that when we put in our measure, it responds to the filter context of the visual. So let's put in a slicer. Let me click out of this and put in a slicer. Now we have a slicer, make it smaller. And then let's go back into our calendar table and pick up our year column. Great. Now let's change how this looks. I'm not a big fan of this, so let's go to slicer settings and just make this into a vertical list. Great. So close these up. So now we have essentially a filter that allows us to look at a certain subset of the data, right? So we have 2017, 2018, and 2019. So we're looking at certain subsets of the data. Cool. So now let's select 2017. What we see happens in our table is in the year 2017, we now see only the sales for products in the year 2017. So store 3, product 1, 2017, we have a sales of 2,340. Product ID 2, we have 1,198. Let's say we switch from 2017. Now we can see everything again. And now we pick 2018. We see sales product ID 1 in 2018, product ID 2 in 2018, and so on and so forth. So when we say our visual responds to a filter context, it responds to certain selections based on the slices and additional filters that we put on it. So now the challenge here is, depending on what I choose, I'm able to see the total sales for that year. But what if I don't want the values to change? What if I want to have just 2017 tails or 2018 tails, and I want to be able to see that consistency across. Let's say I want to be able to do a comparison. When we use like simple measures like these, let's go into our measure column again, and no, we're not creating any measure. Let's go select total sales. Can I zoom into this? Oh, okay, no. Okay, I can. Oh, awesome. So when we write measures like these, what happens is it will always change with the filter context. Now let's try and zoom out. Okay. No. Okay. So it would always change with the selection that I've made. So if I pick 2018, it's going to change. If I pick 2019, it's going to change. But then what if I don't want it to change? I just want to be able to see 2017 sales in my table without it changing, or 2018 sales in my table without it changing. How do I do this? Well, Power BI has a function called the calculate function. With the calculate function, you are able to set or specify your filter context such that when you put it in a new visual or in a visual, it does not change, right? So with calculate, I can calculate the total sales for a given year, let's say 2017, add it into my table here, and it wouldn't change. So let's look at an example. So let's add in a new measure. Let's say total sales for 2017. We're going to introduce the calculate function, and then we're going to again do the total sales. Our table is called sales by store, sales. So we are calculating the sales by store sales, but this time we are setting our own filter context. So we're going to say where year. So we're going into our calendar table. So now let's put total sales 2017 into our sales table. And here we see total sales in 2017, we see the same value. For product 2 in 2017, we see its value. For product 3 in 2017, we see its value. Now let's click, let's say I want to view total sales for 2018. Nothing, right? Total sales for 2019. Nothing, right? But then here we're able to only see like the total sales value for 2017. So the measure or the values here, they are not changed according to the filter that we select. So that's one use of the calculate function. Essentially, it allows us to specify our filter context such that whatever filters that we're applying on our visual don't change the calculation that we're doing. Let's get rid of this table visual and then put the measures in a card visual instead. So let's just pick a card visual and let's drop in our total sales. So we can see we have total sales across all products, across all time, of 4.525 million. Now let's also bring in a second card visual. And this card visual would allow us to see our total sales for only the year 2017. So total sales 2017. And we can see we have a value of 1.68 million. Now remember we have our filter right here. Let's bring this up. So when I select 2017, we see the two of them match because for 2017 across all products we have a total sales of 1.68 million. And in our total sales 2017 measure, we also have 1.68 million. What happens when we choose 2018? 2017 goes blank because it's only looking at 2017 rows for that measure. How about 2019 then? It goes blank because we're only looking at 2017 rows. So essentially, we've used our calculate function to set our filter context to only look at 2017 rows. Let's solidify this with a second example. So in this example, say we want to essentially find the total sales for a specific product. So the products that have the product ID 1, we want to find their total sales. And then we want to compare this against all products with ID 1 that were sold in the year 2017, right? And then we don't want our 2017 calculation to be affected by our filters that we apply. So let's first calculate the total sales for all products with ID 1. So we have our measure here. So let's start by first identifying the products that have an ID of 1. So I'm creating a variable. Now what a variable does here is it stores the output of a certain condition or function, or it stores the output of a certain condition or function that you write. So for example, here I'm using a filter condition, and what the filter condition allows me to do, it allows me to take a table and set a certain condition and grab all the rows that match that condition. So here, for example, I want to select all rows in my table where product ID is 1. So essentially here I've created another table called underscore underscore products 1 that contains rows where the product ID is only 1. So here what we're doing is we have created a new table called product 1 that only has rows where product ID is 1. And then we've also now used a function called sumx. So sumx is similar to sum, but sumx is in the category of iterator functions. So it calculates row by row by row. And we've passed our table to it and said, go to the sales column in our product ID, in our product 1 table, and sum for each row, sum the sales value. So at the end of the day, we should be able to see our total sales value in our product 1 table. And we've returned that output or that outcome here in results. So let's save this. Let's get another card visual. Then let's put product 1 in here. So we're saying that for all products that are products 1, without filtering for anything, the total sales is 23.20K. In 2017, it's 9.20K. In 2018, it's 10.37K. Again, you see our total sales where we use calculate and specified only for 2017 is blank because this row doesn't look at things that are not 2017. But you see that this new measure that we created, that is the total sales for only products that have the product ID 1, it also changes with the measure. But what if we don't want this to happen? Again, what if we only want to see total sales for product ID 1 in the year 2017? We're going to leverage our calculate function again. So here we have total sales in 2017. Let's copy this. And then let's create a new measure. Let's paste this and call this total sales prod 1 2017. So here we are looking at the total sales for all products with the ID 1 in the year 2017. So we specify the year to be 2017, and then we come and we say where product ID is equals to 1. So you see with the calculate function, you can specify as many conditions as you like. You can specify a boolean condition. So it will go row by row and check, does this condition match, and return a true or false. So is the year that is assigned in the row 2017? Yes, it returns it. Is the product ID 1? Yes, it returns it. So it will check for these two conditions, and if the two of them match, then it will select that row. And you can add as many conditions as you want. There are various types of filters that can be used, but for this, we'll keep this as this example to make things simple and clear. So let's save this. And then let's do this. Let's select the fourth card visual. We're going crazy with the cards today, aren't we? Okay, amazing. So now let's put total sales for 2017 only. Oh, wrong filter. Let's put total sales prod, wrong measure, total sales prod for 2017. Now, immediately we see what total sales for 2017 for products with product ID 1 is 9.02K. Let's select 2017 here again. And we also see our measure immediately also shows 9.20K as total sales for 2017. When we pick 2018, we would expect our 2017 total sales prod 1 2017 to go blank because it's not looking at rows which are not 2017. Same for 2019. Awesome. So to recap, the calculate function in Power BI allows us to set a specific filter condition on a calculation that we want to do and do the calculation for that filter condition. So select these specific subsets of rows and do this specific calculation on this subset of rows, and don't look at any other rows aside from these subsets of rows that we've specified. That's how the calculate function helps us in Power BI. If we use just our calculation, it would respond to the different filters that we are adding in our visual. And sometimes that's not the behavior that we want. So again, the calculate function allows us to specify, look at this subset of rows and apply this specific calculation to that subset of rows. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any comments or questions, leave them in the comments section box down below and we'll walk through them together. I'm using Power BI and I'm learning as I go, and I'm also sharing my learnings with you. So leave your questions and let's walk through them together. Yeah, that's it for today.